Director of Training here at Futurity First, and I really appreciate you joining us today. I know your days and weeks are pretty busy, especially coming out of the winter doldrums into the springtime. I know this is a good time to be out there talking to clients and prospects. So I appreciate, again, taking the time to join us today. So today we're going to talk about wealth transfer strategies. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about how much has been said about the coming transfer of wealth coming from one generation to the next. You've all heard the amounts of $40 trillion. I know that sounds like a lot, but if you could imagine how much more that could be, right, with some better wealth transfer strategies that may not have been so tied to the market. So, for example, going back 30 years, we had Black Monday in October of 1987, and then we had the tech bubble burst in March of 2000, when everybody's idea of asset allocation was eBay, Amazon, and Pex.com. And Amazon went from $107 to $7. And then a decade later, it's $500 a share. So the question is, when is the best time to have wealth transferred? Nobody can predict when we're going to have up or down markets and what that can do to somebody's wealth transfer strategy. But there are a number of predictable ways you can set these things up. And then lastly, of course, the last one was the financial crisis in September of 2008, where subprime loans, and then those subprime loans being packaged into mortgage-backed securities, and then those mortgage-backed securities being bet against in the form of credit default swaps. All of that stuff you can get your arms around if you go and watch the movie The Big Short, which is a great flick, or see it on Netflix, or see it on cable, and get a good idea of all what went on during that time period. But all that being said, I want to talk about today's agenda. So we're going to get into a couple of things, right? So first of all, we're going to talk about wealth transfer strategies, more specifically putting your IRA to work. And three strategies we're going to talk about are income tax offset, income tax elimination, and lastly, legacy enhancement. And then for the last couple of minutes, I just kind of want to get into who we are as a company, the additional intellectual capital that we can get our hands on and that we have here internally that can help you do a lot more with your clients and prospects and take your practice to the next level. So are these some of your clients, right? So one of the things you got to think about is asking yourself, are these following clients familiar to you? So somebody who's currently retired and under age 70 and is not currently taking any money out of their IRAs, the question is this: when they turn age 70, are they likely to, or are they likely not to take money out of their IRAs? The issue is if they don't need the money now and they haven't been doing it, chances are they won't need to do it when they turn age 70 and a half. The chances are pretty slim. And the second client is somebody who is over age 70, right? Also don't need their RMDs and end up reinvesting them. And if it weren't for RMDs at all, they would probably not take any money out of their IRAs. So that's the question and the issue that people are grappling with that we can help them figure out. So IRA reviews. What are you doing when it comes to helping your clients with their current RMDs? So here's what's normally happening, right? Clients are usually taking out RMDs. They're rebalancing the IRA for the appropriate asset allocation in relation to the rest of their portfolio, right? That's typically what they're doing, and making sure that it just kind of goes back in line with what their existing portfolio has been performing. So the question is this what we consider a long-term strategy? Taking out the RMD, reinvesting it in what the rest of the portfolio is already in, and then just doing the same thing year after year after year. As the slide says, put in the drawer, and next year repeat the process. That's not what we consider to be a long-term strategy, and the question is there a better way? So let's take a look at what some projected IRA values could look like for a 70-year-old male, for example, with an amount of $100,000 in his IRA earning a hypothetical 7% return, right? So that IRA, you'll notice, will peak at a value of about $143,000 by age 86. At that point, because he's pulling out so much, the IRA value will begin to decline. So you may ask yourself, a $100,000 IRA growing at 7% a year at age 86 should be more than $143,000. Well, the question is, it's the RMDs coming out that really cause that IRA value to plummet, and of course the RMDs that that client has to then pay taxes on. So consider this, right? When your client is forced to take an RMD that they don't need, it clearly means an opportunity for you. So the question is, how many of you out there are leveraging this opportunity that exists on an annual basis? How many of your clients are you going to and discussing a particular strategy that could leverage the RMD they're having to pull out and putting it into a vehicle that leverages that asset, in many cases, multiple times? I know a lot of advisors are reluctant or loath to talk about tax strategies just because they may be intimidated by the whole idea of talking about tax strategies, but it is something that more and more advisors out there should be thinking about, because there's a lot of opportunity, and more importantly, there's a lot of opportunity to help your clients and prospects leverage existing assets, again, by many cases, by many multiples. So going back to the case study of John Smith, age 70, normal health, surviving until age 80, and his wife, Jane, age 65, surviving until age 85. They had a $500,000 IRA, which I'm sure you've got people in your books of business who look just like this, which is why I asked earlier, does this person look familiar to you? You've got John and Jane Smith in your existing books of business right now. Question is, are you having these kinds of conversations with them? So based upon these life expectancies, we have to take a look at what those IRAs, could do hypothetically over the next 25 years or so. So you'll see that, for example, at John's age of 80 and Jane's age of 75, that IRA has grown to $640,000, with an RMD at that point being $33,794. And at Jane's age 85, when John has unfortunately passed away, the IRA value is $711,000 with an RMD at that point of $48,000 a year. So that RMD goes up significantly every single year, which means that tax bite goes up every single year as well. And at the very end of Jane's life, when that IRA ends up being left over to her beneficiary, her daughter, they're looking at, in this case, a tax bracket of 35%, which is a pretty significant bite into that IRA, shrinking it down to $462,487. So that's a big bite out of that IRA that could have been controlled in a much more financially prudent way. So going on to the next slide, there is an IRA strategy that I want to talk to you about. There does a couple of things, 3 things to be exact, right? It keeps your clients' IRAs in their care, custody, and control for the rest of their lives. Now, this is a critical theme that underscores each of these 3 legacy strategies that I talked about, which was income tax offset, income tax elimination, and, of course, legacy enhancement. And number 2, significantly increases the value of their IRA legacy. And number 3, accomplish these goals without taking any additional market risk. Like I talked about earlier, nobody can predict what the markets will do, so is there a better way to leverage the money that people have in their IRAs that they expect to go to the next generation? So one of the things you can be sure of, that old axiom of there's only 2 things that are for certain, death and taxes. Your money is only going to go to 3 places when you die. So it's going to go to a loved one, it's going to go to a charity that you happen to have a particular affinity for, or it's going to go to the government. So if we do a little exercise here and we talk about who you would least like to get your money when you die, who would you choose? And many people would say the government, because that's not somebody who they, or an entity that they have an affinity for in most cases, and would rather leverage those dollars to either a loved one or a charity. So today, you're really going to learn two things, right? You have control of how much of your client's money gets to go into these three circles, and how your decisions affect the three circles will affect your particular client's IRA legacy. So that is the main thing that we want clients to be able to understand, that they have far more control than they think they do. So in the absence of a strategy, with the current plan, right, in that IRA that grew to that initial amount, what's left over for the loved one is $462,000 of that $711,000, and what ends up going to Uncle Sam is almost $250,000. So is there a better way to hand that money off? So let's take a look at the first strategy, which is income tax offset. What this allows you to do, right, is take a look at the whole situation. So the daughter's estimated income tax, like we talked about earlier, on that inherited IRA of $711,000 is $249,000, assuming a 35% tax rate. Would a better strategy be to purchase a $250,000 survivorship universal life policy, name the daughter as the beneficiary? And in that instance, when a death occurs and that that life insurance death benefit kicks off, it's almost like having someone else pay the IRA income taxes for you, right? So remember, and you all know this, that a life insurance death benefit goes completely tax-free to the beneficiary. So that $249, right, thrown in with the $250,000, really cancel each other out. So when that beneficiary ends up receiving that IRA value, right, of $462, coupled with the $250, it brings them right back to what that original IRA value was. So question you all probably have right now is, well, how does that get paid for? Well, for a $250,000 life insurance policy for a female age 65, at a standard underwriting, right, you're looking at $3,952 a year as far as premium cost is concerned. And in this particular policy we used was Protective Life, and it was a Protective Survivor Universal Life, again at $3,952. So the question is, where does that money come from, right? That's nothing to sneeze at. That's almost that's a significant amount of money every single year that the client has to pay. So the question is, where does that come from? Well, we talked about the RMDs earlier. $18,249 is the RMD in the first year. That more than pays for, by many multiples, that $3,952 in premium. Then by the 10th year, that RMD is $33,000, and by the 20th year, it's $48,000. The life insurance premium, as you can see here, is purely a fraction of the total RMD amount. So when clients think about, how am I going to pay for this policy? Well, it's really repositioning dollars that you don't really need right now, that you're constantly having to put out due to IRS laws out of the IRA anyway. So why not take those dollars instead of just repositioning them in the portfolio and position them inside of an asset that can pay back many multiples of the investment? So what does the result of this do? The IRA remained in John and Jane's care, custody, and control. It increased the after-tax legacy by over half, from $462 to $711,000. So essentially, you're bringing that value to the beneficiary of the IRA back to what it was after the taxes were paid. Like the slide said earlier, it's essentially having these taxes paid by someone else. And probably the bigger thing, which I made a big point of earlier by talking about the different market downturns over the last 30 years, is that the couple here really took no additional market or investment risk in their portfolio. And let's look at the comparison between the current plan and the income tax offset. So the loved one gets the original value of the IRA, and Uncle Sam still gets his $249,000 in taxes because of the pennies on the dollar that life insurance can generate when it comes to death benefit. So for the pennies on the dollar investment to generate a much larger income tax-free death benefit to the beneficiary, it's almost like having someone else pay those taxes. So let's take a peek at strategy number 2. So we just talked about offset. Well, let's talk about complete income tax elimination. So again, the forecasted value I just saw a question pop up on the screen. We will try to address any questions at the end of the webinar. But I appreciate that anyway for that information. Income tax elimination. So we forecasted the future value of the IRA, like I said, at $711,000. So take a look at this, right? Instead of purchasing a $250,000 survivorship policy, purchase a $711,000 or match the IRA value, again, using a protective survivorship policy, and name the daughter as the beneficiary, and at death of Jane, daughter inherits $711,000 tax-free, over 50% more net after tax than the original $462 after tax. And what Jane then does is names a charity as the beneficiary. So many people out there are charitably inclined and do have an affinity for particular charities, but just don't really think that these strategies or really think they have enough money to give enough money to a charity that would make it meaningful. When you look at a strategy like this, I would say that $711,000 of an IRA being gifted, right, to a charity by Jane is pretty significant. That is a heck of a legacy that somebody can leave for a charity that they really believe in. So moving on to the next slide, what this has essentially done is it's looked at a life insurance policy, again, in the amount of $711,000 to the tune of $11,248 a year. So similar to the slide I showed you earlier, where does that money come from? Again, it comes from the IRA. I'm sorry, it comes from the, IRA, where the RMDs are coming out of, and it's still significantly less than what the first year's RMD is. And going forward, you'll see in years 10 and 20, the RMD significantly outstripped still the premium cost of that policy. So what you've done essentially is you've kept the IRA in John and Jane's care, custody, and control. You've more than tripled the total legacy. So we look down here at the bottom. Original legacy was $462 after tax. The new legacy is $711,000. Income tax-free to daughter. And because Jane gifted the IRA to a charity, no tax issues there for the charity because they are a nonprofit. So the total legacy is $1.4 million. 711 plus 711 equals $1.4 million. And again, last, and I think most importantly to a lot of people, is that John and Jane took no additional risk in the market. So taking a look at strategy number 2 on our little chart here, it gets even better. So income tax offset was good. Income tax elimination is even better because you're not paying any taxes, or Jane's not paying any taxes because she's gifted the money to the charity, but the life insurance policy kicks off a tax-free death benefit to loved one of $711,000. And the charity gets a similar amount. So let's take a look at the last strategy, strategy number 3, called legacy enhancement. So it gets even better here. So from a tax perspective, right, we know that one of the worst assets to die with is an IRA, just because of the sheer taxation. One of the things you can do is if you don't need the RMDs, then stop the growth. And in this case, what this is showing here is that for somebody who doesn't need RMDs or will never need the RMDs, why not sweep the earnings from that IRA account, and let's say hypothetically they were growing at 7%, on a $500,000 IRA, that's $35,000 a year, right? So after tax, you're netting $26,250. So what is that $26,250, or what can that $26,250 pay for? It can pay for an annual premium of $26,250, which purchases a $1.6 million income tax-free life insurance policy. Again, we're using the protected survivor UL here. And in this case, it's based on a male age 70, again, survivorship, female age 65, standard underwriting. And what that does is it allows them to, again, donate that IRA to a charity of $500,000 at that point, because, again, you're sweeping the earnings out and buying a life insurance policy. So let's take a look at the numbers, right? Original legacy of $462,487. The new legacy, $1.6 million, income tax free to the daughter, $500,000 donated to the charity, which ends up with a total of $2.1 million total legacy. And like I like to say, it retains the IRA asset in John and Jane's care, custody, and control. And lastly, and again, for many people, most importantly, no additional risk in the market. So let's take a quick peek at all three strategies. Income tax off, well, current plan. You have an IRA now, second spouse dies with it, that $711,000 becomes $462,000. Uncle Sam gets almost $250,000 in taxes. An income tax offset, you take an RMDs and you're paying for a life insurance policy, which will generate a $250,000 UL, which will replace the amount of money that's being lost in taxes for, again, pennies on a dollar investment when it comes to premium. Income tax elimination, right? You're taking that RMD and you're purchasing a much larger life insurance policy, which will generate a $711,000 death benefit to the daughter or the loved one, allowing them to gift the IRA to a charity to the tune of $711,000. And then lastly, legacy, and again, nothing to Uncle Sam because that money was gifted. Legacy enhancement, $1.678 million by sweeping the earnings at a $500,000 IRA, right, which came out to about $25,000 a year, or $26,000 a year after taxes, which pays for a $1.67 million death benefit, allowing the couple to, again, gift the IRA to the charity at death, which means, again, no taxes to the government. So the last strategy ends up leveraging and growing the legacy to the largest amount, but all three are very valid strategies that really can help clients keep the IRAs in their care, custody, and control, right? Not take any additional risk, and take care of their loved ones and their charities that they have an affinity for in a much more economical fashion. So the flexibility of the last one, legacy enhancement, you see that the clients can change how they divide the inheritance between the loved ones and the charity at any time prior to death. So that chart showed a $1.67 million death benefit going to the daughter and the $500,000 IRA going to the charity. But in that policy, let's say the individual wanted to make it more equitable and have more of the money go to charity, they could name the charity as a partial beneficiary on that policy as well. That allows them to give them more of that money. So again, depending upon that person's needs or wants, it is completely flexible. So again, if you're not talking about this strategy right now, I believe you're missing out. You've got people like this in your book of business. They're there. That people that don't need their IRA, RMDs, people that would like the idea of handing off X amount of dollars to a charity that they have an affinity with, as well as making sure a loved one gets more of their estate than they would have gotten after taxes. So you've seen all three. Offer your clients one, two, or all three of them as you deem them appropriate. But again, this is something that I think as advisors, it is our responsibility to bring these ideas to the people we think they're appropriate for, making sure they understand that these strategies can be leveraged and help them increase the amount of the inheritance that goes to loved ones and charities, and that after taxes are paid, there are ways to still get significant amounts of their estate to loved ones and charities. So income tax offsets, income tax elimination, and or legacy enhancement. We here at Futurity First can help you with all three. And this is not the only set of strategies that we specialize in at Futurity First. There are a number of other things from an intellectual capital perspective that we have here. I'm just sharing with you a couple of ideas that we've come across, but there are a lot of others that I think we can bring to bear to any and all advisors out there that could be interested in taking a look at our company. So that being said, on to our value proposition. So Futurity First is a company that's been around for about 8 years now or so, and we're growing every year, right? We've got about 300 advisors right now. We are what we call a unique hybrid model. So if you have two worlds of distribution, you've got career and you've got independent, right? We know that most agents or advisors fall into one of those two categories. Well, we've picked the best of both worlds. We've picked what we think to be the best out of career and the best out of independent, and we've coupled them into our company, Futurity First. And we think that after taking a further look at us, you'll get a good idea that we're a company that tries to do the best we can for our advisors by taking the best of those both worlds and combine them into one. So we've got a pretty good national footprint. We've got a lot in the way of, and I'll show you that national footprint in a second, we've got a lot in the way of marketing, prospecting, and sales support. Very independent client model. And what I mean by that is we have over 60 companies currently that we can work with. So when you're at the table with somebody talking about these strategies, for example, that I just went over, you can be comfortable in that your advice to them is completely objective. You're not offering any one program because it's proprietary, meaning we don't manufacture any of our own insurance products. We are a distributor, so we're not beholden to any one company. Every dollar that comes into Futurity First is treated the same, right? So the support program we have for producer groups and heads of offices is significant. We focus on pretty profitable segments, namely the pre-retirement and retirement markets. And the products that we like here, there are others, but the main ones that we offer are annuities, life insurance, long-term care, disability, senior health insurance like Medicare Supplement and Medicare Advantage, and investments as well. So we work with a very strong broker-dealer who does a lot of great things for us, and we can offer that as well. So let's take a look at our national footprint, right? So here's where we're located. Take a peek at this map. Take a peek at any of these offices and see if any of them are close to you. Even if they're not close to you, we've got a virtual program in place too. You can still work with us if you are nowhere near any of our offices. So if you are in the hinterlands of northern Minnesota, you can still work with us. If you are in Idaho, you can still work with us. So just understand that we do have a virtual model that if it makes sense for you, you can still take advantage of many things we have at Futurity First. So look at this map. You see we've got about, I don't know, roughly 15 branch and office locations, each headed up by a managing director who is your conduit to all of the resources we have available at Futurity first. So that's what I think is the beauty of our model, and where it really sings, is that the managing director really underpins all of these things that we bring to the table, which can help you take your practice to the next level. One thing in particular I want to brag about on the next slide is something called a strategies compass. So this is how we begin our dialogue with our clients and prospects in many cases. And on the interior of the compass, you see the 4 client planning themes, we call them, of asset protection and moving in clockwise direction onto legacy planning, which we just talked about, by the way, healthcare planning and income protection. So we've identified these 4 planning themes because we feel that most client issues, if not all, fall into one of these 4 quadrants. Then you'll see it springs out into about 15 or so client strategies that help to solve any of the issues that somebody might have in these quadrants. And you'll notice that legacy planning springs out into insurance policy review, wealth transfer, business continuation, and charitable giving. So that's just an example of some of the client strategies that we have that can help to address some of the issues somebody might have in one of those inner quadrants. And we've just found that it's a great way to begin the planning conversation. So we also pride ourselves in our 5-pillar value proposition. I'm going to go quickly through these. All I mean by market access is how do we help you get in front of people? That's all it is. So you'll notice that these 5 pillars really parallel the life cycle of a sale. And market access, all that means is how do we as a company help you get in front of people? Direct mail. We've got a lot of seminars and workshops that we have. We help you build your own personal websites, and we help you with community programs and, of course, referral training as well. The next pillar is something called market knowledge. All that means is once you get in front of people, what do you then say to them? How do you then uncover what their issues and needs are? How do you then map those issues and needs to the appropriate solutions? So all of this happens in market knowledge. And like I talked about earlier with the 15 proven strategies, we've got pretty robust sales desk support and a lot of other things here like monthly newsletters, selling systems, online training, and national and local on-the-ground training as well. So I mentioned mapping to solutions. The next pillar is the product portfolio, unparalleled in my opinion. Over 60 companies that we work with that allow you to address a lot of those needs and concerns that clients do have with the solutions that we've got in a complete objective manner. You never have to worry about having to sell a particular product and not feeling like you're offering the best solution possible. With over 60 carriers and probably 1,500 different products at our disposal, you can walk away feeling confident that you're being completely objective for the client. And the 4th pillar is how do we help you, right? How do we help you process your business? We know that it's a pain in the neck to chase down that APS. We know that it's a pain in the neck to run after that 1035 exchange money. So we have people on the ground in those offices I showed you earlier in the form of office managers. We've also got case managers, right, available in our home office that help with those chasing down those APSs and 1035 exchange money as well. So from an advisor service, submitting new business, helping you scrub that business, we're right there with you. And the last pillar, but not least, is comp and recognition. How do we pay you and how do we recognize you? Well, very competitive first year and renewal commissions. We have aggregated production bonuses, meaning that if you hit certain levels of production on the business that you do with us, we will pay you a bonus on top of those base commissions. I repeat, we will pay you a bonus on top of those base commissions. Also, we offer our own Futurity conference and carrier conferences. Most companies, or a lot of companies that have their own conferences, don't like the idea of agents going to carrier conferences as well. Well, we don't begrudge you carrier conferences. We allow you to go to those as well. So I know everybody likes to talk about compensation, so just to go deeper on that, highly competitive base commissions ranging anywhere from 55 to 70% on a lot of life policies, annualized commissions on many of our carriers, and up to as much as 80% payout on gross dealer concessions with our broker-dealer. I talked about APBs, which again stands for aggregated production bonuses, which is based upon where you are in production, you can get as much as a 50% bonus on top of already existing base commissions, which brings you to a significant commission level. We've got expense reimbursement accounts that allow you to get reimbursed for certain expenses that you do for marketing, or like this says, in connection with the sale of insurance products and services. Also, free errors and omissions. That can range anywhere to $1,000 to $1,800 a year as far as good E&O is concerned. We take care of that for you, and in many cases, we've got office space available to advisors as well who happen to be in a particular market that's near one of our branches. Strong vesting provisions, $250,000 in production in FYCs, total FYCs, or 5 years, whatever comes first, allows you to become completely vested in your renewals. So, being on for about 40 minutes here, I want to give you my number, 800-298-2181, 800-298-2181. You see my email address here on the screen as well, LionelLatour@ffig.com. We've also got a fantastic website built by one of the best web designers that I know in meetfuturity.com. So I urge you to go to that site and check it out and see if you think what I think in terms of the quality of the information and the content and the look of that site. So www.meetfuturity.com. Make sure you take a look at that. What I want to do now is I want to check to see if there's any questions. I thought I saw one earlier. Just bear with me 1 second while I pull up the question. Okay, it says, do you assist with marketing expenses when it comes to marketing activities? Yes, we have a program called the Marketing Allowance that allows you the ability to take advantage of a pool that's generated by production that's available in the branch that can help you pay for seminars, mailings, things of that nature. So yes, there is a pool of money that's available and doled out at the managing director's discretion based upon the amount of business that each advisor does, that does allow you the ability to utilize those marketing allowance dollars to pay for, again, mailings, seminars, things of that nature. So that's a great question. What's the next one here? Somebody's asking if there is a replay of this webinar available. Another great question. The answer is yes. We always record our webinars. And if you want to call me or send me an email, if you want the recording of this webinar sent to you, please do so. Again, you see my information up on the screen there. If anybody came in late or missed some of the earlier strategies we talked about, I'll be glad to send you the content so you can hear them again. Great question. Let's see if we have any more. The third question has to do with our broker-dealer, it looks like. What are the fees associated with affiliating with the broker-dealer? I believe that is going to be about $2,500 to $3,000 a year, which can be paid for out of the gross dealer concessions that are generated by the business you do with the broker-dealer. And it gets you a lot of really cool things like technology packages and the ability to drop tickets with that company, and access to all their research and various other things. And by the way, our broker-dealer is ProEquities, which is a subsidiary of Protective Life. So they are a company that we do work with and has been doing a nice job for us from a registered representative perspective. So that looks like all the questions. I want to repeat my phone number, 800-298-2181. Please give me a shout. I'd love to talk to you. I am the director of training here. I've been here for a good almost 7 years now, so I don't think there's many questions that I don't know or can't answer. I would love to chat with you about where your situation is right now and if affiliating with us makes sense. So thanks for joining us, everybody. I really appreciate your time. I look forward to talking to anybody and everybody on this call. Take care and have a great day.